hope everyone is having a really good day. I am Jamarl Thomas. I am your host. This is the Progressive Soapbox. There are explosive stories over the past few days that have been coming out in regards to what was taking place in the 2016 election and Democratic efforts in serendipitous ways to influence the election in 2016. The collusion that took place seemed to have taken place between the Democratic government and the Ukrainian government, with the Democratic government using operatives in order to try to get the Ukrainian government to elicit information on elements of the Trump campaign, meaning Manafort, and even try to get the president to bring up Manafort in a way that could potentially justify congressional hearings on the case, essentially trying to tar Trump and trying to do so with their fingerprints off of it, having the Ukrainian government do it. We found that the Ukrainian government was submissive, meaning the Ukrainian government admits to that much. What they don't admit to is what people who worked under Chile, meaning the person who owned up to that much, who makes this argument that there was more, that the Ukrainian government was working with the DNC, with the Democratic Party on this. And again, seeing as it was a submissive Ukrainian government, they required loans from the United States, and Joe Biden even admits to threatening them that if they don't get rid of the prosecutor who's investigated a company that Joe Biden's son worked for, that they would withhold the loans. Now, Joe Biden says this took place over 6 hours, but more likely this took place over several months. But it gets across that the Ukrainian government was a submissive government. And if an Obama administration pushed them to release information on Manafort, hell, they can get him to fire a prosecutor. Are you telling me that they wouldn't necessarily do that if they thought that Trump might be hurt by this and that they can keep their fingerprints off of it? To me, for the longest time, going back for over a year now, I've said that something looked extraordinarily dicey with the spying on the Trump campaign. We found revelations that the FBI had a second spy, essentially a paramour of sorts, a honeypot, trying to entrap Papadopoulos and get information or elicit information from the Trump campaign. But understand what this means. This means that a Democratic Party who's in charge of the political edifice, there's the FBI that is literally spying on the campaign, on the Republican campaign, opposite party. We have a situation where Rosenstein was having a conversation about wearing a wire to get Donald Trump, essentially framing the president, or to try to get the president out of office through some level of impeachment. These are extraordinary steps that these guys are taking. The question becomes, did they have pretext? Did they have just cause to initiate an investigation on one of the campaigns? Did they have pretext? And that's the question. Because ultimately, they got a FISA warrant, and they used that FISA warrant to spy on one of the political campaigns. It seems that the FISA warrant has found even shakier ground. A Freedom of Information Act has revealed somewhat of a bombshell document that the FBI knew was given fair warning that Christopher Steele's intentions within the United States were for political effect. Meaning he was there for political reasons. The dossier that he had at his disposal, the FBI was given fair warning that this was being done for political reasons. And Christopher Steele even admitted that there was a deadline to the work that he was doing in the United States. Now, we know at this point that Christopher Steele was working with the Democratic Party. How did the FBI know this? Right here. Deputy Assistant Secretary of State Kathleen Kavalek's written account of her October 11, 2016 meeting with informant Christopher Steele. Christopher Steele himself in his confession shows Hillary Clinton's campaign-funded British intelligence operative admitted that his research was political and facing an election day deadline. Now, his confession occurred 10 days before they got the FISA warrant on Trump. Understand what this means. It means the FBI knew. The FBI knew. When they put that warrant, they knew the dossier was a political document. They were given fair warning because this woman gave a written account saying this guy is a political operative. In fact, I'll give you her exact words. The FBI redacted the document. So it's only 3 sentences that it gives you, but those 3 sentences get across clearly that they were given fair warning that Christopher Steele was in the country in order to influence the 2016 election on behalf of Hillary Clinton. And they open up a counterintelligence on one of the candidates. Anyway, I've been cynical of this process, and I'm going to explain why. I didn't come to this just out of nowhere. So right here, Steele's client is keen to see this information come to light prior to November 8th, the date of the 2016 election, Kavalek wrote in a typed summary of her meeting with Christopher Steele and Tatiana Duran, a colleague from Steele's Orbis security firm. The memos, unearthed a few days ago through the open records litigation by the conservative group Citizens United. The wild part about this, though, is that the FBI wouldn't even own up to this. So, they got rid of my highlights. So they've been burying this information. If you remember, Devin Nunes had did an investigation where he was pulling up information and releasing the documents to the public. This was even hidden from him. He didn't even know this existed. This literally just came up a few days ago. So right here. The apparent effort to hide Kavalek's notes from her contact with Steele has persisted for some time. State officials acknowledged a year ago that they received a copy of the Steele dossiers in July 2016 and got more detailed briefing in October 2016 and referred the information to the FBI. But what was discussed was not revealed. Sources told me more than a year ago that Kavalek had the most important interaction with Steele before the FISA warrant was issued. Well, we can see why. Because her interaction got across that the Steele dossier was only a political document and should not have been taken seriously in the way that it was. And yet it was. This clearly has to be investigated. You have a Democratic Party that was working with the Ukrainian government. At the very least, up to the degree that they admit there was a DNC operative that was working in the embassy trying to get Ukraine to instigate itself into the United States election. There was somebody, part of that was using information on Manafort. You then have somebody popped into Ukraine for doing just that, releasing information on Manafort. And you find that Fusion GPS was digging around trying to get information, even going so far as to Moscow to try to get that information to get dirt on Trump and to attack the Trump campaign. Now, were they pushed by the Obama administration to release this information? And how do you know they weren't without some level of investigation? Because here's the problem. What the DNC, the Democratic Party, was pushing for is literally what happened. They were pushing to get documents released on Manafort. That is literally what happened. But the embassy says they didn't give that information, and yet somebody was the court found that somebody improperly interfered with the election, meaning it was released. The Democratic Party, in some way, in some capacity, was working with the Ukrainian government, and we need to know what that capacity is. Going beyond that, though, in this case, you have another thread where it seems that the FBI, despite being given fair warning that Steele was purely a political operative and was working to influence the 2016 election, they still used the dossier as a pretext to get a FISA warrant. The question becomes, did they tell the FISA court judge that the Steele dossier was a political document and that there was evidence attesting to the fact that it was purely a political document and that he was trying to use it to influence the 2016 election? And if they didn't tell the FISA court that is another massive big deal. And the question becomes, why? Let's see. Nunez makes the point that, they were trying to hide this stuff from us. Now, here's another point. The FBI has classified this document. Now, this is the interesting part. They are using the National Security Act. So interestingly enough, one legal justification cited for redacting the October 13th, 2016 email is the National Security Act of 1947, which can be used to shield communications via the CIA or White House National Security Council. If they're using this, does this imply that the CIA was active in this case? And again, how would you know without an investigation? These are big deals. This is a big deal. You're talking about a potential Democratic president influencing, using his power in that office to influence the 2016 election using various threads, meaning other governments in one capacity and potentially the Justice Department in another. This is dramatically problematic. We need to understand how far this goes. This is literally an attack on the democratic process itself by one of the parties that believed, for whatever reason, that it was supposed to stay in that office. This is a dramatically big deal. Here's my issue. Part of the reason that I was always somewhat cynical of this process, and I don't think unjustifiably so, believe it or not, had to do with Clinton. That pointed me in a direction in regards to being skeptical of both parties, not just one or the other, but even the intelligence service itself, because they have yet to fully give a clear justification for why they open up a counterintelligence case on Donald Trump using a dossier that at this point we now know they were given fair warning was to be used as a political document. Do you realize that information being released into the public itself was a political operation, a PSY operation? Clinton goes out screaming at the height of her lungs that Russia and Trump were working together. This is the exact same story that they were trying to push forth in the Ukrainian embassy. And this is, to some degree, the story that they were able to get leaked from the Ukraine itself. So from one standpoint, we see the influence of the Democratic Party in Ukrainian politics that's trying to get it to influence our politics. And the question becomes, is that the Clinton campaign? Is that the DNC? Or does it go to the Obama administration? The public itself looks at this and says, oh my God, the president of the United States is working with Russia. And you have a lot of the public that hates Donald Trump's guts, so they don't care about whether or not it's true. They see Donald Trump got peed on, or Donald Trump had a hooker pee on a bed. That's all they care about. They run with it. The news media hates Trump's guts. They run with it. So you have a large section of the American population that's the political body of the Democratic Party, fused, in this case, with the media, howling at the height of their lungs that Donald Trump is colluding with the Russian government. The reality of it mattered less. This was seeded into the public. And in this case, it gave a certain degree of justification to the counterintelligence case, even though what we know now is there was no collusion between Trump and Russia. And a counterintelligence case that was opened up, they knew in advance that it was nonsense. Which brings into question, why did the FBI open a case that they were given fair warning was purely political? Why am I bringing up Hillary Clinton? Back during the 2016 election, if you remember, we were waiting on Comey to come out with his proclamation. Now, for all of this talk about Barr being Trump's guy and everybody else, nobody looks at the Obama administration in the same way, which is odd. The Obama administration, the Democratic president, put in Loretta Lynch as his attorney general. That's his power to do so, so fair enough. Loretta Lynch is overseeing, ultimately, an investigation on Hillary Clinton, his Secretary of State, meaning Obama's Secretary of State. So the Attorney General that Obama put in office is overseeing an investigation on the former Secretary of State that Obama also put into the office. Does Loretta Lynch know Obama's intention? Meaning, doesn't she know that clearly the Democratic Party and Obama doesn't want Hillary Clinton perp walked, seeing as that's the candidate that they're going with? That's the candidate that they anointed to be president of the United States. Loretta Lynch comes out and says, though, I'm going to leave this up to Comey. I'm not going to get involved in this case because there will be a massive conflict of interest if I did so, seeing that Obama put me in that office. Here's the problem with this. Comey comes out and lists all of these failings, crimes that would have put anybody else in prison, and there is a gentleman in prison for what Hillary Clinton did, for similar crimes to what Hillary Clinton did. But Hillary Clinton, Comey comes out with an amazing answer to this, moves the goalposts, and says she's not guilty. Foreign countries have access to her device. She's been the former first lady. She knows better, and yet not guilty. Gross negligence, but not guilty. It is impossible. It is impossible for an honest justice system, an honest investigation. We find out later on that Comey had came up with his verdict before he even talked to Clinton. My point is this. Any honest justice system, Clinton would have been indicted. The people who were instrumental in getting Hillary Clinton off ends up working on a case to get Trump on, meaning get this counterintelligence case on. Meaning the people who might have had a political motive in getting Hillary Clinton off, why wouldn't they also have a political motive in getting Donald Trump on something that can stop him from becoming president of the United States? This secondary option, this secondary plan. All of this looks dicey. Strzok, McCabe. And to take this to one more step, the conversation between Lisa Page. Now, right here, again, Loretta Lynch says she wasn't going to intercede in this case, and yet she has a conversation with Bill Clinton. I would imagine Bill Clinton said, oh my God, don't lock my wife up, or making sure things are okay. But they come back saying, hey, we're just talking about our grandkids. If you believe that I have a bridge on Mars to sell you, it's a beautiful vista with waters and dinosaurs. But this is the problem with that. Look at this. Lisa Page confirmed to me under oath that the FBI was ordered by the Obama Department of Justice not to consider charging Hillary Clinton on gross negligence in the handling of the classified materials. Loretta Lynch lied. She was instrumental in setting the tone of this case, and she did lean on Comey. Like I said, she leaned on Comey. I said before, more likely than not, she was leaning on Comey. Comey came out and said as much, that she was trying to get him to talk about the case in terms of the Clinton campaign. That in and of itself is a massive breach of etiquette. And then my question was, why wouldn't that go further? And apparently it did. If they were lying and being squirrely about the way they were covering this case, why wouldn't they be lying and squirrely? Why can you just immediately trust them on how the Trump investigation was started? And why would you automatically believe that that was on the up and up? I don't understand why, with the presidency at stake. Here's another interesting part, right here. Kavlik's note shed light on another mystery from the text messages between the FBI Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, which first revealed political bias nature of the Trump collusion probe. If you remember, Lisa Page and Strzok were, Page was cheating on her husband, or Strzok was cheating on his wife. I think both of them were cheating on their partners, but they were having these conversations back and forth, essentially talking about how horrible Trump is while they're working on the case. Strzok, the lead FBI on the case, and Page, a lawyer working for the FBI deputy director, repeated messaged each other in October 2016 about efforts to pressure and speed up the review of the FISA warrant. For instance, on October 11, 2016, Strzok texted Page that he was fighting with Steele for the FISA, an apparent reference to Deputy Assistant Director Stu Evans in the Department of Justice National Security Division. A few days later, on October 14th, Strzok emailed Page he needed some hurry the fuck up pressure to get the FISA approved. If the evidence is good and the FISA request solid, why did the FBI need to apply pressure? The real reason may be that the FBI was trying to keep a lid on the political origins, motives, and election day deadline of its star informant, Christopher Steele. This looks like abuse of FISA warrant in order to spy on one of the political campaigns. This has to be investigated. If the argument is made that Donald Trump had to be investigated because it looked like he needed to be investigated, fair enough. I think that logic is somewhat dicey. I mean, you believe that Trump needs to be investigated only because information was leaked into the public to give you the perspective of him needing to be investigated. The true evaluation is whether or not the information that you're presented with is legit. Just because Paul Ryan comes out and says he's trying to save Medicare by cutting Medicare doesn't necessarily mean he's being honest. I'm saying in this very particular case, the information that was leaked to the public was done so for the very specific reason to hype up this notion that Trump is colluding with Russia. It was for that effect. But if you come out and make the point that Steele was a political operative working for the Clinton campaign, which was something that was being concealed before, well, then I have a different point of view of the information. This is a bombshell. And I don't necessarily know if mainstream media is doing the story, but this is a bombshell. So I'm going to end this here. I'm not going to keep this long, at least longer than it has to be. I hope I explained this right. I'm putting the article at the bottom so you can see it for yourself. Oh, and by the way, Pop Reality, we beat Biden, Sanders wins. Yes, Pop, I agree with you on this. I'll end it here. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free or consider supporting the content through PayPal or Patreon, or at the very least, like and share the vids. Thanks all.